All right. So, welcome everyone, and welcome back to whoever is coming back to us, and welcome whoever is the first time. It is a pleasure to see you all. Now, today we kind of a little bit going back to what we already discussed in the past, but since there is a lot of things that have been added in the last few months in the platform, and many concepts, additional concepts have been introduced in the platform, we decided to kind of reiterate a little bit more and focus on a little bit different things. And but today we want to start with more of why we do what we do. What's the platform is about? And, you know, what's behind this entire concept of problem solving or systematic problem solving. So let's start there. Now, my first question, when that we start here, my first question is going to be, what's the purpose of any commercial organization? And since we don't have a lot of people here, we can have it a very interactive. So any commercial organization is put in place just for one purpose, and that purpose is profit, to make profit, to be successful, to make money at the end of the day. Right? There's no other reason in the world. Even the non-profit organizations, they still have their profit in a different form. It's just potentially not money, but it's still a form of profit, right? Now, what defines the profitability of any organization out there? What contributes to the profit? Who can tell me? Right? There's a lot of things. There's things like
Mhm.
innovation, the culture of
Yeah.
employees, operational excellence, right? Whether or not our process is optimized, and there's many other factors that all of them together contributes to this profit, like customer focus or financial management. Like there's million and one things that contributes to the performance and profitability of the
Yeah.
company. But there is one common denominator to all of these is it basically all comes down to how effective or uh, uh, about the efficiency and effectiveness of how we solve the problems, right? If you think about innovation, we're making any changes, we basically create the problems when we make changes. Uh, Improving processes, the same thing. Uh, Improving culture, you name it, anything that we touch inside the organization, eventually it comes down to how well we're solving problems. Now, my next question is where are the problems coming from? And who can tell me that? Right? First of all, the problems, as I mentioned a second ago, problems usually coming from changes. And by the way, even if you're trying to not do any changes in your own product, in your own company, and kind of maintain the status quo, the problems will still come up. There's nothing you can do about it because of different other factors that don't depend on you, right? There's internal factors that the fact that the systems that we're working on are imperfect. There's always something changes in there. We need to maintain them, you name it. We of course want to innovate. We try to keep the cost down. We try to improve processes. When we grow, there's even more massive changes. So all of these internal factors, and there is much more, of course. All of these internal factors, they are changes. There is nothing we can do about it, and they inherently create problems. Of course, there's external factors like markets and customers and then technological advancement that created outside of our company, new competitors coming in, many other things that don't depend on us, but they are there. They're part of the world that we live in. And there is much more global things like COVID, right? You all remember how COVID changed our world. Politics, wars, unfortunately, right? Introduction of electric vehicles. It kind of disrupted the entire market of automotive manufacturing. AI lately, it changed a lot of things. So if you think about it, again, the world is changing, but if we will try to maintain our own status quo, an internal mental status quo, and how we solve problems, we're gonna become obsolete. So all of these talks about, oh, AI will take over our jobs. It will take over our jobs if we're not gonna adapt to them, right? AI is here to stay. There's nothing we can do about it. So, but there's one thing that stays consistent, and it's problems that we need to solve, and they are here to stay. The world is changing. Uh, it's a new reality. We need to change. It's a new set of problems, and it's all about our ability to solve these problems effectively and efficiently. It all comes down to exactly the same thing. So if we want to maintain our maintain our how do you say it? Still remain up to date and remain relevant, we need to be able to continuously solve problems in the continuously changing world. Okay. Now, as it appears, the average human being is not very good problem solver for many different reasons, right? First of all, there's this term called psychological inertia. Again, it's part of our psychology. It's our inherent inability to change or resistance to change, right? There's a lot of cognitive biases. We have about 129 of them combined, that each and every one of them in different ways, shape, and form prevents us from making decisions, making conscious decisions. Stressful situations, if you think about it, when we're working on problems, it's inherently a very stressful situation, especially if it's an incident or, the manager is sitting on our heads and so on and so forth. And all of these things, they drive our emotions, right? Why is that? It's very simple. It's our biology, actually. The brain consists uh, of course, many parts, as you all know, but the two that I want to talk about is the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. Now, when we're in stress and anything that happens in the world today, any changes at work, any problems at work, all of these things just a little bit contributing to our stress all the time, every time. What happens, the stressful situation makes our amygdala to work much harder. And what that means, the blood flows into the amygdala. And the only thing that we able to do is make decisions based on emotions, reactive decisions, because that's how that's our mechanism to for survival, right? That's us being human beings. But as we all know, emotional decisions, they're not very good decisions. It's not something logical. It's a reactive decisions. It's made for us to survive. Now, the purpose of us to make better problem solvers, better decision makers, and make and become better at dealing with any complex systems and complex problems is move our abilities from amygdala to prefrontal cortex. Now, by the way, the amygdala, there's even a scientific term to it. It's called amygdala hijacking. Now, how do we make that move? The only proven way how we can do that is through organized and control of our thought process. And I'll pause here for a moment. Basically, if we able to calm down, of course, many people saying, okay, uh, let's what's it called? Meditate. Of course it helps, but it's not everybody is able to do that. Not everybody is capable to do that, but everybody is able to organize their thought process. And we build a system exactly to make that much easier in much more organized way. So without further ado, I want to switch to the actual platform if there is no any questions. All right. So let me do that. So the platform, first of all, I'll start with a little bit with the website itself. And the website, uh, uh, some of you probably seen it, but I want to shift your focus into these resources. We publishing a lot of articles, a lot of blog posts about the system and about the processes and about the methodology. There's a lot of things to learn from the blog. We're providing courses. There's a collection of courses that we provide as part of our services. All of the webinars that we ever recorded, they published here. This webinar going to be published here as well. And the knowledge base. The knowledge base is basically documentation that related to how to use the platform. So anybody who decides to try to use the platform themselves, the documentation is here, and then all of these different documents, they link from the platform, and I'll show that in a moment. Now, the platform itself, you're looking at this here. The platform itself is organized in form of projects. So the central part of anything that we do, any challenge that we work on, any problem that we're trying to solve, any piece of innovation that we're trying to do, is organized under a shell of a project. And again, project could be a 5 minutes thing, it could be a 5 months thing. It's still, we're trying to keep it within the same context, all the information related to one thing. Okay. Now, of course, we allow them to use different tools separately, and we'll talk about these tools in a moment. But we're encouraging people to use projects as much as possible. Now, let's open a project, right? So usually what we've seen from the past, and that's one of our recent additions, what we've seen from the past is people struggling to even open the first project because it's hard to think about anything new to work on, right? What is it you're going to solve? Or we've heard things like, when we will see a problem, when we'll come across the problem, we'll definitely work with you. But that never comes. Again, we are in a stressful situation at that point. The last thing that we want to do is to think about some platform out there that will help us to solve problems instead of trying to reactively solve problems. So that's why we created this workflow that helps us to create these projects in a very specific way. Now, what we're collecting a few pieces of information. First of all, the industry that we're in, right? One of the options is that you can choose from the available list here, and the list is pretty long. Or, you can start typing what you look for, and it will filter the things that related to your search. Or you can simply just say, we are making microchips, right? Or microprocessors. And that's the system for assistance. So it gave a few different options.
Smart.
All right. So it gave a few different options because not everybody knows how to call their industry, their area of what they're dealing with, right? So just tell what you do and we'll help you to define that industry. So let's say that's the semiconductor manufacturer. Same concept with department, right? You could be in IT, you could be in R&D, you could be in QA, you name it, right? But the same concept is here. We are making sure that the processes are efficient. Something like that, right? And probably we'll give some quality assurance. Right? So let's say it's a quality assurance. And so on. All of these three stages, industry, department, and goal. And goal is the high-level goal. What is it we're trying to achieve as part of this project that we just started, right? No need to go into the details. It's just to allow yourself to start focusing into what you're trying to do. It could be increase efficiency or same concept we're trying to do to do something, just describe it and the system will help you with that. Let's say we're going to do reduce costs, right? Now, the other thing that we're trying to avoid is people to make, a lot of people, they try the platform by typing in test, test, test. That's not very helpful because test is not a real problem out there that we're working on. And at the end of the day, they're not going to achieve anything and they're not going to see any value, right? So if somebody writes test, we're actually making a verification if that's a real thing, if that's even, holds any value. And if it doesn't, we're not allowing to create that project for a very specific reason, for that same reason that, the system is not doing the work for you. The brain is working in order to solve the problem. The system just helps you. And for that, we need to enforce people to actually do the thinking themselves, right? Now, a few things that we suggesting here, based on some ideas that we may potentially generate based on the industry department and the goal that you can use. So you can just basically use one of these or get more ideas, and it will propose a few other ideas. Or of course you can try using, ideally you should write your own thing that you're trying to solve. Let's go next. The next thing, again, it runs through the same verification. Great. And it will ask for the one last thing before we create the project, and that's the name of the project so we can find it. And for the lack of a better name, I'll just call it the demo for now. And let's launch it, right? So for now, we created the project with all of these details that we put in place. All of these things, they changeable at any point in time, whenever we need. As any thinking process out there, the purpose of that is, we're thinking very randomly all the time. And the thought process is very unorganized. Anything that comes in, anything that we decided to change in the process, please do and change it. That's the whole purpose of it. We're holding all of that information for you as the problem solver, as an engineer. Now, the background information. And by the way, when we're talking about the process of problem solving, a project, it's exactly the process that we're proposing how we should solve the problem, right? First of all, we're collecting the information, the known information about the problem space, the system. What is it we're trying to solve? What is it we're trying to achieve, right? And many times it comes from a manager, and sometimes from a product manager, and sometimes it's the engineers themselves that kind of think about the problem and about the challenge that they're trying to tackle. But bottom line, the background is everything that we know about the problem space right now, right? And one of the interesting features that we have here is get a feedback. So it's an AI-driven functionality where we're asking the machine to evaluate how well the data is organized, so we're actually ready to move forward with a further move forward with the project. And of course, there is just kind of a one-liner, not a lot of information here. And the system expects us to expand and challenge symptoms. What are the symptoms? Include the context about the information, the impact about the information. So it will consistently ask for more and more information until we construct a well-defined background, right? And, the experience shows that the engineers are pretty lazy. We're all lazy. We're trying to be lazy, so we're trying to even avoid that step, and we think that we know everything, but we don't, right? And this thing drives us to provide more and more information. What I'll do for a second, I'll actually, I will steal.
Alex, I have a question. Whether the attached files contribute to the AI evaluation scores?
Excuse me?
Whether is the attached file feature contributes, okay, does it contribute
Good question.
by attached file to the scores?
Good question. At this point, no, not yet, but we have plans to provide a way to give it a weight as well. It's a little bit tricky from a compliance perspective because some of the files, how do we know what is allowed to be shared to AI, what is not allowed to be shared to that? So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered in terms of shareability of that information, and usually documents that people have in their workplace, they do hold much more information than what they produce by hand in different platforms like that. But I'm sure that in the future we'll solve that problem, and it will be included in evaluation as well.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so as an example, I just stole a description from another project, and let's run this evaluation again. Right? All of a sudden it gave 70%, right? It still asks for more information, and we're all trying to be the best of the best, and we want to get to the 100%. It is very hard to get to the 100%, and naturally it's very hard to get to the 100%. But we consider anything above 60, 65, 70 is good enough to continue further, right? And also, as you will see, as part of the entire process while you work on a project, you will discover new things, and you will come back to the overview and start, continue building this overview, because all of a sudden, oh, I forgot about this piece of information, and just add it in here, right? As mentioned, there are files that can be attached here. There's no limit to how many files can be attached. The only limit is how many files can be attached at once. So we're allowing 5 files at once. And then, of course, we managing the team who we allow to have an access to this project and to work on this project. I'll just add Anatoly as a contributor. The lead is automatically becoming the one who creates the project, and so on. So this is an overview of the project itself. This is where we start. Any questions here for now? The next step in the process is, of course, problem statement, something that a lot of people hate doing. Especially engineers, they like, oh, I know what the problem is. Well, yeah. No, you don't. And we experienced groups of people when they looked at this problem statement and like, no, it's a simple thing. And then it took them about 2 hours to actually come up with a real problem statement. It's a normal thing, and people are surprised how much they don't know when they're working on this. And in order to build a proper problem statement, we created a five-step process. First of all, a description of current situation. Basically, what is going on? That's your symptom, right? We have an AI tool here as well that basically uses the overview to extract some of the data from there and provide some ideas. Again, don't treat the AI as this is your problem solver. No, AI is not capable of problem solving. We are, right? We are the ones who solve the problems. But the AI can hint, it can help, it can evaluate, it can do different analysis, but it can't really come up with new ideas or be smarter than you. There's no way for that, right? For the sake of saving time, I'll just use that. Ideally, we should write it ourselves using the hints. And then the next steps is disadvantages of the current situation. Same process, right? We have the current situation. Why is it bad? Why do we even consider that as a problem or a symptom of something, right? Same concept. We can have some hints. In this case, since one problem can cause, one failure can cause many problems, or many disadvantages, it allows us, it kind of proposes us a few, in this case, 3. I can use a few of them and then continue further. Ideal final result. What is the ideal final result? Like, if I want the perfect world, what would it be in this context? Again, without going too much into the details, just to show the mechanics. And then gaps. The gaps is something that prevents us from getting there today. That is actually defining the fact that there is a problem. We can't achieve what we want to achieve, being the ideal final result. And the gaps can be, again, from many different things. Some of it described in the overview, some of them not. Lack of effective strategies and so on. And then finally, when we have all of that information in place, now we can actually define the problem statement. So we can define the problem that we're trying to solve, right? We have all of this information organized. Now we can write the problem statement. Again, I'll use an AI just for the sake of saving some time. But the purpose of us building that is understanding and breaking down that piece of information that I talked about, organizing our thought process. We don't want to work on everything under the sun or trying to solve all the problems in our system. No, we can solve one, and that's an important thing. Yep, there was a question. All right. Anatoly, anything to add here?
Just one point. During working on problem statement, if you got some idea, you can document it, and it will be saved. Alex, can you show?
Oh yeah,
I'll get to the
button.
ideas manager. I'll get to the idea managers then.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
So, okay, nothing.
All right.
Continue. Please continue. Sorry.
Now, next step in our process, that's actually the core of the system, the core of the methodology itself, and that's the creative tools or creative thinking tools or engineering thinking tools. There are many names to that. We just call it simple creative tools. Currently, we have 12 of them and more to come. This tool is actually not available publicly yet. We still didn't release it, but it's coming up. Now, some of the tools out here, they built in order to analyze and find where the problem is, basically do the root cause analysis. Some others they built for ideation, and some others built for analyzing the entire system or the process or the system or process, right? Many times we also ask ourselves, well, which tool is actually better for us to use? Again, the system comes a little bit to our help in here, and it says, listen, given the information that you provided until now, these are tools you should probably start with, right? It does provide a little bit of information of why. What are you going to get out of it from each and every one of these tools? Process functional modeling, for example, right? And it's not 100% correct. It's not 100% perfect, but who is? But it gives a good direction of where to start. Always the start is always the hardest. Now, just a brief description about these tools. First of all, each and every tool has a link to it to learn more, and this is going back to that documentation, to that knowledge base. Each and every one of these, it linked to the knowledge base. So when you have questions, when you need to understand more about the tool and how to use it, it's all linked in here. 5 whys, we all know what 5 whys is. It's the trying to answer the question of why something is happening 5 times. Officially, we actually call it 5+ whys because there is no reason to stop at 5, or there's no reason at all to go all the way to 5. So we made it a much more flexible thing, and allowed to even generate solutions as part of the 5 whys process. Cause and effect chain, also part of the root cause analysis, but it's a ramified tree of kind of asking the same question: what's the reason for something to happen? I'll jump into functional modeling. Functional model is a tool that allows us to analyze the system and learn how the system works, identifying the components that the most functional or the most problematic in terms of with respect to our product that we're trying to produce. And every system will have a product. So that tool allows us to analyze on a system level. The process functional model is kind of the same thing, but on a process level. So every process consists of operations, and we can analyze the process by breaking it down into operations, and every operation is analyzed using the functional model itself. So you start seeing how the tools starting to be connected as well. Inventive principles, it's a tool, it's one of the base tools that coming from PRIZ methodology. And it allows us to analyze contradiction, to build contradiction and analyze contradiction and find the solution, how to break these contradictions. Round robin ranking, it's a tool that helps us to make decisions. For example, we're not, as average human beings, we're not able to make a choice between more than 2 things at once, right? It's easy to make a choice that we want to buy a red sock or a blue sock, but when we have 12 different pairs of socks, it's really hard to make that decision. Also part of the inefficiency of problem solving and decision making. Urgency importance matrix, a tool that helps us to prioritize tasks. Seems trivial, but it's actually much more helpful than anybody usually thinks. Task prioritization, especially when you have a lot of things, it helps a lot, again, with efficiency. It's all about question of how efficiently and effectively we're solving these problems and making decisions. Action preventing action. It's our own tool that Anatoly actually developed a while back. It's a tool that allows us to analyze the customer needs, what the customer needs. So very helpful for product managers out there, or it also very helpful to analyze internal needs. So our customers could be external, whoever pays us money, or it could be customers from within the company as well. Effective brainstorming. It's as brainstorming as any brainstorming out there, but with our own twist to that. Because the issue with brainstorming is, yes, it's very easy to collect, arguably not very effective, but it's very easy to collect ideas. The question is, what do we do with them after them, right? How do we make decisions? Which one is better to take forward, which one is better to evaluate? So we included the entire process of helping to do that. 9 windows, another tool that comes from a PRIZ methodology, and it allows us to look at the system in a 2-dimensional space, in the space and time dimensions, right? We looking at the past, and we're breaking the system into different levels of system, subsystem, and so on. And basically, we're trying to predict what's going to come in the future. Sounds intimidating, but it actually works. And perception mapping, another decision-making tool that allows us to easily identify blockers. And blockers is basically, imagine yourself, you need to do maintenance. And there's a lot of things that you actually need to do, but you can complete all of these different tasks, but there's usually one or a few tasks that blocking you from actually progressing any further or showing any progress. A good example was You know, there was a restaurant, they built an amazing restaurant, they had amazing food. Everything was perfect, no clients. The blocker was that there was no parking, right? So you can do a lot of different things, but something may potentially block the entire system to actually function. So that's the perception mapping. Functional modeling, we talked about that. And change flow thinking, again, this is not public yet, but soon to be public. It's a tool that allows us to manage and visualize the change management. Any questions about tools?
And say number of words about process function modeling. You skipped it.
I
No, I
have a
did.
question about change flow thinking. Is that like
Mhm.
value analysis, value engineering?
Not really, no. The change flow thinking is analysis. It's a risk analysis. So basically, imagine yourself that you're making a change. Again, I won't go for the lack of time. I'm not going to go into each and every tool. But imagine yourself that you're making a change. That change causes problems, as we talked about on the deck, right? These problems potentially dragging additional changes. So we building a tree in there, trying to understand all of these potential risks and all of these potential implication of the original change. It also allows us to, let's say you hit a roadblock at some point. You're saying, okay, this way is very complex. The other way is non-achievable because, I don't know, there's no material available quickly enough, and so on. It allows you to analyze that change on a different levels and redefine your goals, so you can actually achieve the original goal that you defined for yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Again, there will be, once we publish it, there will be documentation, there will be a lot of materials written on it and how to use it and what's the purpose of it and what's the goal of it. Okay. But in a simple words, it's prevent the situation where people start working on something and then much later in the game realize, oh my God, we didn't think about this one thing that now we need to spend a bunch of money or additional time and so on. Okay. Now, one thing that I need to tell about all of these tools, each and every one of these tools requires some level of understanding, some level of learning. So as part of our onboarding process, we do provide a very extensive, very detailed training on each and every one of them. We're dedicating from 1 to 2 hours at the very least just to make sure that people understand what this tool about, how to work with it, what's the purpose of it, and so on. So we're not throwing people into the ocean. Now, as Anatoly already mentioned in the past, a few minutes ago, every time that we work on any one of the tools, and let's just kick off one of the tools, let's say functional model. Every time that we work on any one of the tools, we, in one way or another, we think about the problem, about the system that we're working on, we're analyzing the system, and so on. The thinking process continues, and we're trying to organize that thinking process. As a result of that, we generate ideas, right? This is how our brain works. This is how our prefrontal cortex works. And all of these ideas, since, for example, if we're working on a particular tool and we think about an idea, we can immediately record it here, some idea. And I will show a real project in a second. Now, all of these ideas, they collected in Idea Manager. Oops. In the Idea Manager. And this Idea Manager is showing, of course, all the ideas. It shows where the idea coming from. So which tool potentially, if it's coming from as a result of working with a tool, which tool it's coming from, so we can understand in the future how these ideas got generated. Maybe I'll jump into another project here. Okay, so here's an example of a real project with a bunch of generated ideas. Again, these ideas linked to tool that they've been generated from. That's very important to understand, because that is our thought process in general. This is, you know, somebody asks you, or you ask yourself a few months after, how did I come up with this idea? Okay, so now you have this understanding how you actually came up with this idea, from which tool, what was your process, what was your order of thinking, and so on. Now, the idea manager allows us to do a few things. First of all, of course, it's a collection of all the ideas, and as I mentioned, the documentation of thought process. It allows all the contributors to give their 5 cents, give their input of about a particular idea. Is it give their thought about that idea. For example, what's the gain in terms of idea? AI assistants also coming to help in here to give some details and what may potentially affect in this case the gain. And the way that we do that, we're saying, is it a high gain? So we can't really put a number against that, but we can do a relative value, right? And these relative value with some notes in here, we defining the gain, we're defining the cost. Of course, the higher the cost, the lower the cost, the better, right? So that's why the highest it's in the red, but lower cost is better. And then again, putting the cost notes in it, and then the risks. So speaking of risks, what are the risks of implementing that particular idea as well, right? Again, the higher the risk, the lower the risk, the better. And again, risks notes as well. So that allows us to build up the knowledge and understanding of the entire team around all of these ideas, and it gives a collective score, and different people will contribute to that. Will start contributing to these scores, and all of them going to be collected in here. That effectively becomes part of the, let's call it, the discussion of how the idea is getting evaluated, right? Let me delete that. I'll remove my contribution here. Another thing that the idea manager allows us to do is, again, allows us to compare the ideas and make a decision which ideas are better or worse, right? And that, if you remember, one of the things that we talked about in the tools, it's this round robin ranking, right? Round robin ranking is actually linked into many different pieces in the platform. One of them is idea manager. Basically, let's compare different ideas and understand which one is better for us to use going forward. But instead of us looking into the entire list, and this is a fairly short list, sometimes it's a few tens of different ideas, it's very hard to compare. But if you compare it in pairs, what's called a bitwise comparison, it's much easier to make any decision. And of course, at the end of the day, we want to mark to ourselves which ideas are winning, or which ideas we're going to take further, or which ones we're going to drop. And when we editing each and every one of these ideas, we of course have some sort of very short explanations and details that we want to leave here, and the status. So pending, it's basically an indication for ourselves. What is it we need to look at? What did we already decide to go forward with the idea? What did we decide to reject, or what's already implemented, right? Because don't forget, all of these projects, they might be ongoing. So something that already implemented, but there's more steps into that. And of course, if it's implemented, it's gonna just indicate that it's implemented. We'll put it back to pending. Now, why do we collect all of these ideas? For one purpose and one purpose only, is to generate the final solution to the original problem we're working on. And many times, actually most of the times, the solution is not built out of a single idea. Most of the times it's built out of multiple ideas, right? We thought of different options, we thought of different approaches. You know, potentially we need to make a change here, make a change there, change the material, you name it. At the end of the day, this is what creates our final solution, right? The steps of the final solution. And that solution is documented here. Again, it's the human being that documents the solution. It's very important to understand, right? It's our brain that works, not the machine. The final thing, the final step, is something that every engineer in the world, as far as I'm aware, is hating of doing, is generating reports. I'm an engineer. That's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
I invested all of that work. The last thing I want to do is write a document or a presentation or all of that. But this is something that we can do quite easily in automated way, right? So this report, it's a printable PDF that pretty much consists of everything inside this project, from the overview to problem statement, the solution, and then every tool that was used inside this project, who used it, which ideas got generated as a result of that. For example, here, right? It's for the inventive principles, and these 3 ideas were result of that for the inventive principles. So the entire thought process is documented in this report. You can call it a fingerprint of the solution, right? Now, this fingerprint of solutions, it's actually much more important than many might think. Think about patents, right? Of course, this is not a patent, but after talking to a few patent attorneys, they basically said, yeah, of course, it's not a patent, but first of all, it's a good start for information collected before the patent, before documenting the patent.
Yeah.
But second, it's a copyright. It's an official copyright of what you did. Because don't forget that, let's say you come up with an idea, but there is a patent out there that kind of under the same idea. If you have a proof that you came up with the same solution before that patent was documented and approved, the patent doesn't apply to you. Thank you for the drawing.
Yeah, this is a very good suggestion to use this for, what you just described. Because and you can in the Netherlands, I'm in Amsterdam, you can use such documentation and file the date with our tax service. It's not a patent, but it's an official recognition of the date that your ID existed. And this is exactly, you can use for the same purpose. If you ever get a court fight over some ID, it's judicial evidence. This is super valuable.
Right. Another thing, for example, in Canada and in States, I'm sure many other countries as well, there's something called a R&D tax credit, right? R&D tax credit, as part of that, you need to prove that you actually did the R&D, something risky, some sort of development, some sort of experimental, right? That's a perfect proof for that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Any questions about that? And we do run a little bit over time. Now,
I have a
yeah.
quick question.
Of course.
May I ask? Yeah, okay. I kind of remember there was a feature where you can publish a link like to your social network or somewhere else through email and asking like people or your network to contribute their ideas. Is it still available here? Did you get
Contribute their ideas?
like publish a link about your project and asking people to suggest ideas? I remember.
I think it's hub.
Well, there are a couple of things. We have partially implemented something like that for perception mapping. So we're allowing people to collect perceptions from anybody in the world if they want to. That's one option. Another option is what's called the PRIZ Hub. And PRIZ Hub is where people are allowed to, of course, if they want to, allowed to publish their projects, right? So for example, that project that we just looked at, it's this guy. It's exactly this thing. So the project, it's a little bit less information than available in the platform itself. Of course, it's not editable. It's for people to kind of show off of their abilities, what they're capable of, what they achieved, potentially, publish the solution to the world. But it contains the base information about the project, the overview, who worked on it, same problem statement. So it's very close to the PDF report, but organized in a web form. The tools that's been used, right? All of these tools, ideas that got generated as a result, and the final solution, right? So this platform, this hub, allows people to leave comments as well, right? Again, it's still at works, but it's the target of that to make it partially part of your resume, if you will, right? You have your projects that you worked on in the past. You have your experience that you worked on in the past. Here's the problems that you solved in the past to show off your abilities as an engineer. Last couple of things that I want to tell you about is meetings. And as you know, meetings, as part of any problem-solving process, of any process in any work environment, we have a lot of meetings out there. And usually they managed in a calendar or somewhere, and then meeting notes in some sort of, in some sort of documents. It's all over the place usually. What we try to do is we try to create meetings inside the platform as well. I won't go into the details here. We'll do another webinar related to meetings specifically, but the meetings are documented. The meetings notes documented here as well. Who participated, why they participated, what was their contribution. Everything related to meetings and the outcomes of that meeting is kept inside the project itself, which is very important. Again, imagine yourself you coming back to it a year from now. Normally, you wouldn't have all of that information. It will be somewhere in the emails, in some documents, in some notes. There's no way you can find it. Here, we try to create a situation that everything is kept in one place. But also the other thing, as part of any meetings, what's the outcome of the meeting? Usually some sort of action items, also known as tasks. So that's why we implemented also a task manager. Task manager, it's a very simple but effective way to manage tasks. And again, the important piece is to keep them inside the context of a project. So when you come back to it in another year, in another life, you can actually look at that and say, I know what this related to. Or even during the project, instead of having the spreadsheet, a gigantic spreadsheet of tasks, you can have them here, right? All of these tasks, they also oops, my apologies. They also visible inside inside the dashboard as well. Here's the task that I just created. Okay. Any questions here? Great. One last thing I want to say about the platform is AI. We did implement something called AI assistant chat. It's very similar to what you would see in ChatGPT, but it's very different. And it's very different for one little reason, because it has the entire context of your project, the entire knowledge of your project, the entire knowledge of what you worked on until now. And it's almost like having an additional set of hands in your team, right? You want to ask how you want to collect information. Yes, you can go to Google, or you can go in the library, anywhere you want. This is a much faster way. And again, this all going to be saved inside the context of the project as well. So what is the dielectric oops consist of? Let's say I don't know, right? And it will find you an answer, and so on. Anything that you need help with collecting information, this is a perfect place to it. And again, it's saved inside the project forever. All of these answers, they're gonna be saved here for it.
Yeah, smart.
All right. Any questions? We're running out of time. I know that we actually over time already. So one last piece of information. As I mentioned, the platform is, as you can see, pretty complex. There's a lot of stuff in that. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of different processes. There's a lot to learn. The last thing that we want to do is to throw people into the ocean and say, you know, swim on your own. That's why, of course, we have documentation. We have everything that we can possibly provide to help people onboard themselves. But for larger teams, we have an organized onboarding process that consists of 4 different steps. First of all, it's a theory. It's where we're teaching every little bit of theory. It's a very comprehensive set of lectures. The full set is actually 13 lectures about the theory, about the methodology of problem solving and innovation, and anything in between related to the platform. Usually after every lecture we have, or in between lecture, part of the lecture, we have a practical hands-on training. So for example, if we're teaching on a particular tool, we will have an exercise, ideally if that exercise coming from the trainees themselves, bringing their own problems into the room, and basically using the tool that they just learned to analyze whatever it is that they analyze. The third step is a little bit longer process, which is facilitation. So this is where we're helping the participant to lead, and basically leading them to work on their challenges that they're working on a day-to-day basis in their work environment. This is probably where most of the actual learning happening, where people are planning to their problems in their projects for their environment. This is a very important step. And then, of course, we're providing the ongoing support, but this is where, you know, people already onboarded, they know, we kind of speak the same language about the problem solving methods, and what is it, they potentially become mentors within their own organization. And that's probably the best outcome we can have, to have few champions inside the organization that can lead that initiative forward, right? And of course, it allows all of these folks to grow professionally as much as possible. Now, one last thing, all of these teachings, it's not only about the tools and the methodologies and the platform, how to use the platforms. We really changing the way people think about how to solve problems. The thinking process completely changes as a result. And that's probably one of the biggest values that we provide as part of it. And I will stop here. Apologies for 7 minutes over time. Happy to take any question.
I just wanted to add that we will continue our academy with detailed information about each tool. I believe next one will be functional modeling. This is one of the most powerful tools, thinking, creative thinking tools. And yeah, we will spend 1 hour to understand this tool. Let's say you will be able to start working actively with this tool. This is really excellent tool.
And we'll continue further with other pieces and anything new that comes up. We'll continue these step-by-step education sessions as much as we can.
I remember one of my students, I teach engineering thinking in the university. He said, you know, I try to understand to define the problem statement, and I succeed to do it only after I build functional model. He built functional model to define the problem he is going to solve. And he made fantastic project.
So can
All right.
I send this, you guys are you recorded it. Can I send this recording to other people or do I have to send their names to you for?
You can distribute it as much as you can.
Yeah.
This recording will be published on our website. I will send an email, probably not today, but tomorrow, an email summarizing what we talked about with the recording attached, with the deck attached. We trying to share it as much as possible, and you all gonna have that available for you and anybody who registered but didn't come as well. So yeah,
Okay,
please
cool.
distribute it as much as possible.
Yeah.
And
so
call us
function-
if we can.
I really want to see the function modeling again. That's one of my, I like your statement, starting with function modeling is what I try to point everybody in as well. Start with that, even if it's Post-its on a noteboard, but you guys are way ahead of that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex, for having me. This is very informative.
Yeah, and again, welcome, and please contact us if you have any questions with any help.
I mean, what I
and
take
so
away
on.
from this is that I should start defining some projects to learn some more about the thing, and I'm really thinking of what you can call soft context applications. So policy decisions, strategic decisions, stuff like that. I'm thinking of trying out that stuff because I think there's a whole world outside of engineering that can benefit from these tools.
Absolutely, and it's interesting that one of our clients, they actually came up with a completely different application to this thing of something that we never thought of, and that is collecting is basically building an SOP based on the problems that they solved in the past, right? They create a product, and there's user complaints or customer complaints, and these complaints getting collected and eventually analyzed. But all of these analyses, they really build up to SOP, right? Standard operation procedure.
Yeah.
How do you deal with a particular problem? How do you resolve it for the client, right? So it's completely different world that we never even thought of addressing, but it's totally interesting.
Yeah. Okay, you gave me that just now. So yeah, thanks. Yeah, and if I can, this functional analysis sounds, yeah, I know the power of that. So if I can, I would love to join such a seminar too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Amazing. We'd love to have you here as well.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I'll
Thanks, guys.
stop the recording.